Hey everyone, welcome to the Watchmaker Studio. I'm really glad you're here today. Today on the bench we've got a really interesting Breitling Geneve from the 1950s. But not sure if you noticed, but it actually has the Hatuey Cerveza logo right on the dial. So we got a Swiss watch and a Cuban beer. It's like a horological mojito. I mean, this has got to be interesting, right? I mean, I can even imagine what 70 years ago in Cuba, what it was like when someone first strapped on this watch.
They call me Cuban Pete. I'm the king of the rumba beat. When I play the maracas, I go chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom.
Yeah, that seems right. So let's get into this watch, and you can see the Hatuey Cerveza logo right there on the dial, and you can tell that it was actually done at the factory. It doesn't look like an aftermarket sort of logo stamp. So it was something that was done by Breitling, and they've actually got a long tradition of doing custom dialed watches, but normally, at least what I've seen, it's either for airlines or like military squadrons. I've never seen one for a corporation like this. So if you have, I'd love to hear about it. You know, put in the comments. So I'm going to test the functionality here. Make sure the hands are working. Yeah, look at that. It's loose in there. It's definitely not. Shouldn't be doing that. And looks like it's trying to run. Yeah, but it's dying. So it starts running a little bit and then just dies. So I'm using this ball here to open the back, and you'd be surprised how well this works, right? You take this rubber ball and you kind of, turn it on the back there, and a lot of times it just opens it up for you. I have a bigger, more fancy opener, but I don't use it that often because this usually does it for me. So let's take a look at this watch inside. Oh yeah, look at that. That's beautiful. That is a beautiful looking watch. Now if you look, you'll see that it says Breitling on the oscillating weight, which is the part that spins around that I'm moving here with my finger. But this movement was actually made by a company named Felsa. And this is a Felsa 692 Bidynator. I know, it sounds like a movie villain, but it's actually a pretty impressive piece of engineering. It's one of the first automatics to wind in both directions. And you might wonder why Breitling didn't use their own in-house movement. Well, back in the 50s, it was pretty common for even high-end brands to source their calibers from specialists, and Felsa was one of the best. Their Bidynator was cutting edge at the time. It saved Breitling a ton of R&D and gave them access to one of the most reliable bidirectional winding systems available. Smart move, really. Why reinvent the rotor? So once the crown comes out, it just pops right out. So I'm going to take a look here and see if I can see what's going on with the movement. And it looks like, I'm going to give it a little bit of a turn here, but it kind of looks like it wants to start, but not really. It starts and then kind of runs for a few seconds and then it just dies. And I'm not seeing anything obvious, right? I'm looking to see if the balance staff is broken, but it looks okay. So I can't really tell what's going on. So we'll just keep going, because as we take it apart, we're going to inspect all the parts and to make sure that everything looks right. And oh look, it's running again. Huh? Now it's running, but then it stopped. No. Okay. All right. False alarm. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the hands off of the watch. So I'm going to put this protective cover on it because I want to protect the dial, make sure that nothing happens to the dial when I take it off. And I'm using this cool old tool that I have from K&D, which lets me take the hands right off. And it works really great, actually. I love that tool. By the way, if you are a tool person, you will love this hobby. Let me tell you, there are plenty of tools. That's for sure. So I'm carefully taking off the hands here, and I'm putting them into this membrane box. And what this membrane box does is it actually protects the hands, from getting knocked around or bent. I mean, they're very delicate, right? So there's a membrane inside of it that kind of holds them suspended there. So now I'm taking the screws off because this is how you take the dial off. There's a couple of screws that actually hold the dial on. And so I'm just going through right now and I'm unscrewing them carefully, and then the dial should pop right off. And we got to be careful here because we got to remember to put the screws back in. And I didn't do a very good job of tightening up the screws there. And I really need to just tighten them up because if you don't, it's very easy to lose those screws. So learn from my mistake. Make sure to screw those screws back in. Now I'm putting the dial here inside of a dial case. It kind of holds the dial suspended so it doesn't get knocked around. And first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off the oscillating weight. And there's this little tiny thing that we just listed in the parts list as bolt. I know, creative. But unfortunately, it's gone. I lost it. 1 minute, it's on the bench, and the next, it's gone. I looked everywhere. I looked in the cleaning machine. I looked all over the bench. I took everything apart. It just ghosted me. However, don't worry. I made a new one. It's fine. You'll see it when we put the watch back together. I didn't include footage of me making the part because the video was long enough already. But if you're interested in stuff like that, of like me making actual parts in a situation like that, let me know in the comments below. And maybe I'll include that in the future. Now I'm taking the balance cock off here, which houses the balance wheel with the hairspring, which is a very fine spring that is very easily damaged. So it's one of the first things I take off normally, just to make sure, put it aside, make sure that it doesn't get any damage. Now I'm removing the automatic winding bridge. Basically it's a cover plate over all of the parts that actually make up the automatic winding movement. And you'll see as I take off the bridge, you'll see all those wheels under there. And I know they look like gears, but in watchmaking they call them wheels. Now you notice I grabbed another tool here with my left hand, and that's really to hold the spring down, keep it from. Did you see that? It almost flew away, right? That's why I do that. So there's springs that kind of hold tension on different parts in the watch, and there's these springs will, if you don't hold them down when you're taking them off, they will fly across the room. Ask me how I know. Now this J-shaped piece here is the automatic reverser, and it's part of the automatic movement that actually allows it to wind in both directions. That, along with these wheels here, all make up the automatic movement. Now you'll notice that the underside of this wheel actually has a pinion down there, and that's actually what's turning the barrel. That big wheel down underneath there is the barrel that actually contains the mainspring that has all the power to the watch. Now this piece that looks like a cover is actually the axle for the oscillating weight that goes right above it that spins around. Again, this is all part of the automatic winding movement. And by the way, those screws are tiny. I mean, extra tiny. Those are really small. Now, the next thing I have to do is I have to take the power out of the mainspring. Because what you don't want is you don't want all that sort of pent up energy inside of the mainspring, just putting all that tension on the parts, because once you take a part off, everything will just go flying, right? And it'll let it all out, let all the power all at once, and it'll do damage to the actual watch parts. So you really got to be careful. So it's always good practice to unwind the watch before you move. And what I'm doing here is I'm moving the pallet fork to see if all of the tension is out of the mainspring. I want to make sure that it's all out. Now these screws are holding down what's called a 3/4 plate. And it's a large plate that's 3/4 the size of the entire main plate. And this is what's holding down all the different wheels that make up the train of wheels. And that's how the power gets transmitted from the mainspring all the way to the balance wheel. And that's what makes the watch work. So we're going to take this plate off carefully here and start taking apart the train of wheels. It really is a pretty movement. I mean, see all the decoration that's on there. There's circular marks on the main plate. It's called perlage. And it's all done by hand. Really kind of a sign of a higher quality movement. Now, Felsa calls this a double third wheel. You can see it's a double wheel. Now, that's the third wheel. If you look under, there's a plate. There is the center wheel or second wheel. And this is the fourth wheel. And next to that, you will see the escape wheel, which is the next one that I will take off. That's the escape wheel. Now, Felsa calls this the sweep seconds pinion, and it goes all the way through to the dial of the watch, and is actually the part that the second hand attaches to on the dial. And then this large piece here is the barrel, and the mainspring is inside of it. And I'm going to take it apart. I'll show you what the mainspring looks like. Now this little figure 8 piece, it's called a bearing plate for the sweep seconds pinion. Basically, that's what the second long seconds pinion that we pulled out goes through that bearing plate. With another extremely tiny screw. This watch has got quite a few tiny screws. And there's this bridge that's here is over the center wheel. And you'll see that there's a wheel under there. That's the center wheel. And for those of you that are keeping score, the center wheel is the second wheel. The mainspring barrel, that's the first wheel. And there was a third wheel, that double third wheel, the fourth wheel, and the escape wheel. Interestingly, Felsa calls this the center wheel cock. But normally a cock only has one screw, where a bridge has two. So I would have thought it would have been a bridge, but they call it a center wheel cock. So, hey, it's their movement. Call it whatever they want. Now the screw that I just took off actually screws into the setting lever on the other side of the watch, and that's actually what's holding down the crown. So now the crown comes out, and on the crown is the clutch lever and the winding pinion. That's the winding pinion. That's actually what turns the crown wheel that winds the watch when you turn the crown. But I'll show that more in detail when we put it back together. Now this is the pallet fork cock that's actually holding down the pallet fork. And this is actually what regulates the release of the tension of the mainspring to the balance wheel. So like if I would have taken this out right now and there was still tension in the whole system, that's when things would go really bad. So take this off and then take off the pallet fork, and then we'll be done with this entire section. Now you notice that the pallet fork actually stuck to the pallet fork cock, and that's usually a sign of old oil that's dried. The actual pivot stuck in the jewel. And that is, wait a minute. Yeah, there's our problem right there. So that bottom pivot is actually broken, and you can see it's actually stuck inside the jewel. That's why the watch wasn't running. It can't run without a pivot. So we're gonna have to find a new pallet fork to fix this watch. So let's keep going. So this plate that I'm unscrewing right here, Felsa calls it the date disc bridge, and it's actually what's holding down the date wheel, which is the part with the numbers on it, with the dates that you see on the face of the watch. I just realized I really should have taken that spring out. Let me take the spring out here, or else this one's going to go flying too. So that was dangerous. Throwing caution to the wind here. All right, so let's remove this plate. And I'm going to go ahead and put the date wheel in with the dial in this protective cover. So just to keep it a little safer. I don't want it to get scratched. And it's not going to go through the cleaning machine. Because if you put that through the cleaning machine, those numbers will be gone. They do not survive with the cleaning machine. So those do not go through the cleaning cycle. Now this here that I'm going to remove now is the date wheel. It's actually the part that turns the date disc. So as the gears turn, it'll turn it. And that part is the hour wheel. That's the part that actually turns the hour hand. The hour hand sits on that wheel. What I'm taking off here is the cannon pinion with this really cool old tool that I have. It's a cannon pinion remover, and it's specially made to take off that cannon pinion. Now that cannon pinion was actually connected to the center wheel on the movement side, on the other side of the dial. So when I took that cannon pinion off, the center wheel came off underneath. Now this plate here is holding down the minute wheel and the rest of the motion works. The motion works are the part of the watch that moves all of the hands of the watch. And this is the winding wheel. So this is what transfers the movement from the keyless works, which is the crown and that portion I'm going to take off right now, to the motion works, which is the part I just took off. Now this is the setting lever spring, and it's what actually allows you to either wind the watch or set the watch. This piece here is actually the spring that holds that tension on that the setting lever that does that. Now this spring here is a beefy spring. They're all usually yoke spring, which is what this is. Very, very strong. So you got to make sure to keep pressure on that sucker when you're taking it out, because that will fly away. And that is the yoke, and that's the part that moves the clutch back and forth. And that was the setting lever that I just took out. And that's pretty much it. Now, to be fair, the watch doesn't look too dirty. I mean, usually, in some cases you take apart a watch and it's filthy inside, right? A lot of oil, grease, all kinds of stuff. This one's actually okay. It's not in bad shape. Oh, I forgot about this part. This is the part that actually pushes the tension against the click spring that keeps the mainspring barrel from unwinding. So that's what keeps the tension inside the mainspring. Now this screw is just the screw that the click sits on as it's held against the mainspring. And I think with that, this time it's really done. No, really, this time it's done. I know I said that once before, but no, this time we got all the parts out. So I'm gonna do some pre-cleaning of the movement, but the first thing I gotta do is I have to take out that little piece of pivot that's stuck inside the jewel from the pallet fork that broke. So I happen to have these pivot brooches that are thinner than a hair. All right, try to push out this pivot. Come on. There you go. I think we got it. I think it's on the other side. Let's see. Did we get it? Yeah, I think we got it. Yep, there it is. That is a tiny little piece of pivot. All right, great. So I'm going to start the pre-cleaning process here. So first thing I'm going to do is called pegging the jewels. So you take your sharpened piece of peg wood and you scrub in the individual pivots to make sure that you're breaking up any of the old dried up oil in those pivots. And that'll really help the process as we're cleaning the watch. And I can tell you that this step is really important to really improve the amplitude of the watch after the clean. I think it's probably one of this and cleaning the pivots on the wheels is probably the most impactful things that you can do to make the watch run better after a good service. And by the way, these are the pivot brooches I was talking about earlier. I don't know if you can get them anymore. I actually ended up getting this with a group of old watchmaker tools from a estate sale, so I don't know where you would get them today, but it's a good thing I had it. You know, and I just noticed that I forgot to take off this wheel, which was on the bottom of the automatic winding bridge, which is the crown wheel. Okay, so now we're going to take apart the mainspring barrel. And normally you just take the mainspring barrel and you can, if you carefully push down the edges, it'll pop open. And you can carefully reach in with some tweezers and make sure that it doesn't pull out as you take off the lid. Otherwise, the mainspring will go flying and make a big mess of things and throw things across your bench all over the place. So this barrel is different though than any barrel I've used before. As a matter of fact, you'll notice that the barrel arbor is actually integrated into the barrel top. So yeah, it was awkward to get out, and I'm sure it's going to be awkward to get it back in. So now I'm going to start by slowly pulling out the inside of the mainspring, and then I'm going to be alternating between thumbs as I'm taking it out slowly. And you have to be careful here. You don't want to put too much pressure because you can bend the mainspring and bend it out of shape. So you gotta be careful. You also got to be careful with things on your bench at this point. As it starts spinning around, you'll notice that I'm going to move everything out of the way here. So yeah, well, that was the end of it. But it will grab things on the bench and just fling them across the room. So you got to be careful with that. And that's it. So now I'm going to take a little bit of time here, and I'm going to clean the inside of the barrel. It's just got a bunch of old grease in there. So I've got some IPA on this Q-tip, and I'm going to go through and do some initial cleaning before we put it in the cleaning machine. And that's isopropyl alcohol, not India Pale Ale, by the way. Just in case anyone was wondering why the heck I'm using beer to clean a watch. It's not beer. Now, all of this is quite important, believe it or not. All this little bit of extra cleaning really makes a big difference when it comes to the amplitude of the watch. Any residual oils or old grease that may be in the pivots or in any of the jewels really adds friction to the entire train of wheels, which reduces your amplitude significantly. So it's really important to do this even before you actually put everything in the cleaning machine. The cleaning machine it does a great job, but it can't get all those just old oils and greases that are in those jewels. Okay, now this is something that's new to me, that I just built it, as a matter of fact. This is a really cool, I love this thing. It's a watch cleaning machine, a fully automatic watch cleaning machine that I actually built. All the parts that are black, blue there, those are all 3D printed. And the rest of it is off-the-shelf components. It's pretty sweet, and it works really well. I'm really happy with it. It was actually a Kickstarter campaign that I got in on. And at the end of the campaign, we received all of the files for the 3D printing, the list of all the off-the-shelf components that I needed to purchase, the software that actually runs the cleaning process, and then the instructions on how to put it all together. So it was great. And the guy that did it did a really great job. The Kickstarter was called Uberkiwi. I think you can still get on there and order it. But it works really well. It's got a cleaning cycle, 3 rinse cycles, and a drying cycle. So I love it. Nice little machine. Okay, so we're going to start with winding the mainspring back into the barrel. And this leads to one of the coolest sounds in watchmaking. Whoa, I was not expecting that. Hey, must be that Cuban beer. All right, so let's pick back up here and continue to put the watch back together. The first thing I'm doing here is we're going to put the center wheel in, and I'm putting some HP 1500, which is a medium viscosity oil, on that long staff of the center wheel that actually goes through to the other side of the dial. That it is actually the part that the cannon pinion attaches to. And then this is the barrel. So we're putting the barrel back in, the mainspring barrel. We're making sure that everything is running smoothly. And same thing, I put some HP 1500 on the pivot of the barrel. Now, this piece that I'm attaching right here, this is actually the click spring. It's actually what presses up against the barrel and keeps it from unwinding. Get that right in place. We can keep going. And I'm making sure that it's got tension properly and it's actually stopping the barrel. There we go. Perfect. And there's a tension. All right. And we're good to go. So now we're going to put the crown back in, because we need to put the crown back in to actually be able to wind up the watch. And along with the crown and stem is the winding pinion and the sliding clutch. Now those three parts together are the central elements of the keyless works. And you're wondering why they call it the keyless works. Well, back in the 1800s, in the old pocket watches, they actually had a key in order for you to wind the watch and also to set the time. With the invention of the crown, they no longer needed a key. Therefore, the keyless works. So there you go. So I'm sliding on the sliding clutch right there and putting the crown in place. So I'm going to add a little more of the 9504 grease here to the sliding clutch, because that's actually where the yoke pushes up against it, which actually is under high tension. You want to make sure that it's properly lubricated. So now we're going to move on to the trainer wheels, and this is the, Felsa calls it the center wheel cock, but it's actually what goes over the center wheel and holds it in place. And this is the beginning of the trainer wheels. Now, I think it's important for us to take a moment here and take a step back and actually talk about the reality of what happened to Breitling. Because this Breitling was released by a company that actually no longer exists. So let's talk about the 70s, right? Not the bell bottoms, the Quartz Crisis. By the late 70s, the Swiss watch industry was in a free fall, right? Japanese quartz watches were everywhere and they were cheap, accurate, and maintenance free. Suddenly, you know, those handcrafted mechanical timepieces look like, well, old news. And to be quite honest, Breitling didn't stand a chance. They shut their doors in 1978. Game over. So it seemed, insert this guy, Ernest Schneider, who a pilot, engineer, and a guy who saves the watch brands. In 1979, he bought the rights to the Breitling name. No factory, no stock, just a name. Kind of like buying the Batmobile logo without the Batmobile. But it worked. Now, don't get me wrong. He was in the watch industry. Actually, he was the owner of Sakura Watch Company, which was more of a budget brand watch. So he understood the business. So through the 80s and into the 90s, Breitling slowly climbed its way back. They leaned into what they did best, tough aviation-inspired chronographs like the Navitimer and the Chronomat. And by the time the 90s rolled around, they were back in the game as a legit luxury brand. These days, Breitling is a top player in the luxury watch game, so good on you. So I've been putting in the trainer wheels here, and you've seen that. And I'm getting ready to put on the 3/4 plate, which holds down all of the wheels that I put in. Now, got to be really careful here because there are tiny pivots on the ends of these wheels that go into those jewels, and you'll see that I'm actually manipulating them slightly to make sure that the pivots fall into the jewel. This is the easiest way to break your watch. If you put too much pressure on that plate with the pivots not being in place, guess what? Those pivots will bend or break, and then you got to find replacements. So carefully, we did that. We've ensured that they were in the pivots, and now we're going to screw this plate back in. Slowly at first. I will barely tighten them, the screws, make sure that everything's still running smoothly, and then we'll tighten them up all the way. So yeah, the Breitling story really is an interesting story, and it's always makes me chuckle when I see a listing, somebody selling a Sakura watch as it's a Breitling. No, not really, but sure. Anyway. Okay, so you'll notice that I'm putting slight pressure on the plate with my finger just to make sure that all those pivots stay in the jewels. And here I'm testing from the mainspring, making sure that the power is going through all the wheels. You can see them all spinning. So after we finish with tightening up these screws, I'm actually going to put in the setting lever, because I need to be able to give the watch a wind. So what this does, it screws in from the other side of the watch, and it actually holds the crown in place. So that's actually what keeps the crown in the watch. If you notice, as I pull the crown in and out, this screw right here is screwed into the setting lever, and you'll see when I pull it, that setting lever is what moves it from winding to setting. So now I'm putting in the yoke, and this actually slides that sliding clutch forward and back to actually put the watch into setting mode. So you'll see that there is a nice beefy spring that we're going to put in here to make sure that it puts the pressure onto the yoke. This is the yoke spring. Now, like I mentioned before, this is a strong spring. You need to make sure to hold it down. That's why I'm grabbing my stick here to make sure that hold it in place while we put that sucker in there, because that is a powerful spring and it will fly across the room for sure. And here I'm putting some 9504 grease out on the contact points. That's to help prevent wear in those parts, because there's a lot of use of those parts. Okay, so we've got the yoke spring in. And now we are putting in the setting lever spring. And this spring puts pressure as you are shifting between one setting mode and the other, winding or setting. So once we get this in, then the keyless works will be pretty much complete. So here you can see how it works. See, as I pull it out, it moves that sliding clutch forward, which will then engage with this wheel that I'm about to put in right now, which is called the setting wheel. At least that's what Felsa calls it. Different manufacturers call it different things, but what this wheel is doing is actually transferring the movement from the keyless works to the motion works. And now I'm just applying some more 9504 grease to the to where I'm going to be putting in the minute wheel. And this is called the minute wheel bridge, basically holding down the minute wheel and the that setting wheel. So next we're going to be putting in the cannon pinion. Now the cannon pinion is the very center of the dial. That's where the hands sit, and it actually attaches to the center wheel from the other side of the watch. And we got to be careful when we're pushing this down. Make sure those teeth are between the other teeth of the minute wheel there so we don't damage them. But now I'll just test everything, make sure everything's moving properly. And you can see that's the key. This works, moving, the motion works, and so forth. And now I'm putting on the hour wheel. Now, Felsa calls it a double-toothed hour wheel. And if you look at it, it has 2 rows of teeth. So, okay, makes sense. One of those sets of teeth actually goes against the minute wheel, and the other set actually turns the date wheel, which is this wheel that I'm putting in right now. There you go. Now you can see it all working. It's always fun to see all the gears going back and forth. Okay, so next here is our friend, the pallet fork. Now, the pallet fork does not go in with the rest of the parts in the watch cleaning machine because the chemicals are a little harsh and those stones are held in by shellac. And things like alcohol or other chemicals can actually loosen shellac and those stones will fall out. So I put in a special cleaner called One Dip, and that's actually what it was sitting in and cleaned to clean the pallet fork and make sure that it was nice and clean. But that's our new pallet fork that we acquired to replace the one that was broken. And what I'm doing here is as I put the pallet cock on over the pallet fork, I'm making sure that the pivots of the pallet fork, which, you know, we don't want to break these, like the one was broken, are inside the jewel. And you'll see that here I'm using the tweezers to actually ensure that the top pivot there is in the hole of the jewel. And there you go. Now it's in. Then I'll tighten it up, test it, make sure, give it one last check, and then tighten it up all the way. So now I can actually wind up the watch. And what I'm doing here is you can see how it snaps from one side to the other. That means that the wind from the mainspring, the tension is making it all the way to the pallet fork. So it's ready to actually pass that energy to the balance wheel. So here we are. Now we're going to put in the balance wheel. And this is a big moment because this is what we've all been waiting for. And all the work that we've put into this and the cleaning and the oiling and all the fun stuff just to make sure, and the replacing and the finding of the bad parts and all that good stuff. Will it work? And picked right up. It's working. I love that. There it goes. You can see the balance wheel turning and things are looking good. It's always a great feeling, right? After you've spent all that time, you've gone through everything to actually see things working. Now you notice that, see how it stopped and then it kind of started a little bit because the screw wasn't screwed in. So there's a little bit of an angle to the balance cock. So once I tighten it down and actually put it at the right level so that the balance wheel could spin nice and smoothly. So now I'm going in and I'm oiling the jewels. So I'm giving some lubrication I'm using 9010 for the escape wheel and for the fourth wheel. And actually I'm putting HP 1300 on the center wheel and, oh, easy. What are you doing? Come on, man. No better than that. Don't you? Oh, son of a. All right. They like to fly, in case you didn't notice. So you got to be careful with those jewels. Luckily, it was right there. It didn't go very far, but let's put it into the One Dip to get it cleaned. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the jewel and jewel setting inside of the One Dip to ensure that we get them nice and clean. And you'll see that I will then oil it before we put it back in the watch. See, this is all the oil that it needs, and you don't need to put any more oil than that. And I will put the setting on top, and the capillary action will actually hold them together. So see, I can turn it around and they're stuck together. And if you look at it, you can actually see there's a little circle in the jewel where the oil is right in the middle of the jewel, which is what you want. And you want that pivot that is inside, which once I put this jewel setting in, the pivot from the balance wheel will actually sit inside that jewel, right into the pivot, will sit in that oil, and that will keep it lubricated. So now I'm turning it over so I can do the same thing to the other side of the balance wheel. Same setting down on that side. And let's see, maybe I can do a little better job on that one. So first I'm going to oil the different jewels here. Putting some 9010 on the escape wheel. And let's see, it's at the fourth wheel. Looks like the fourth wheel. All right. And we don't put any oil. That's the escape wheel. We don't put any oil on the pallet fork. Those pivots need to stay dry. It is so sensitive at that point that even a little tiny bit of lubrication actually adds too much friction. Okay, so here's the other jewel from the other side. All right, come on. You can do it. You come. Okay. Get it in there. Those suckers do like to be difficult. Anyway, again, cleaning the jewels, making sure if it needs some additional cleaning, I will clean it at this point, and then put the oil in same as I did on the other side. There we go. Put that in there, and we carefully close the Inca block setting, which is that setting that sits in those two little very, very thin arms there that hold the jewel in place. And that actually setting was invented in the 40s. Before that, there was a lot of problems where if you dropped your watch, the pivots would either break the jewel or the pivot would break. And those Inca block settings actually were invented. The shock settings were invented to allow there to be a shock and it move enough where it didn't break the pivots. Now here what I'm doing is I'm putting a tiny bit of 941 oil on the pallet fork on the pallets, and then I'm letting it run through 3 teeth of the escape wheel, then putting 3 more teeth, and I do that 5 times. There's 15 teeth on the escape wheel, so I want to make sure that the whole thing is oiled. A little bit came on the top of the pallet jewel, so that's why I was using a little bit of Radico to clean that off. Okay, so now we're putting on the oscillating weight axle, which the oscillating weight it sits on this and spins. So although it looks like a little cover, that's actually the purpose is for it to be the axle for the oscillating weight, which is the part that spins around and winds the watch. Boy, that balance wheel is running beautifully. Love it. And it really is a pretty movement. I mean, you look at it from that angle, just a very nice looking movement. So this is the click wheel. And this is the wheel that engages with the mainspring barrel right there, you'll see. But it's actually what spins, and actually I'm putting it in the wrong place right now, which is funny. I will come back and fix that. There's so many individual wheels, they look the same, and this was my first time working on this watch, by the way. I've never worked on this movement before, so I mean, that's the good and bad part about vintage watches and working on vintage watches, right? There's always something new, but you don't really get an opportunity to work on the same one very much. But I mean, in some cases, you do see some quite often, right? And you go back to those and you kind of have those memorized and understand all the different parts. But yeah, this was my first time working on this. There we go. Now I figured it out. This is my first time working on this particular movement. It's an interesting movement, and it's actually fairly simple, but pretty elegant. My biggest complaint about this movement is probably this automatic section here, because there are all these different parts, and they're kind of loose in there, right? And they're kind of sitting there loose until you put that bridge over the top of them. So you'll see it's it's not too easy to get them all in there right and then move them around. And you can see I'm kind of going back and forth like, oh, wait a minute, that's upside down. That one's in the wrong place. So again, you gotta give me some slack here. This is my first time working on this movement, but we got it. We got to figure it out. All right. Yep. Just putting a little oil in it, and I'm putting the HP 1300 on these wheels as well, and getting them in place. Okay, so now we're going to put on that reverser, which is actually what allows it to wind in both directions. I do have to put a little oil on here before we put it in place. So I'm going to take some HP 1300 and put on that pivot right there. And then we got to get it in place. But you're starting to see that all these different parts are kind of in there a little bit loose. They're sort of in place, but they're still moving around a little bit. So it's going to require a little bit of, juggling here of the different parts as we're putting them in. Okay, so that the gear has to go in the middle of these other gears, the other wheels, right? And then that pivot has to go there, right? And that's got to go there. There we go. Okay. And then now we need to put in the click. Make sure these are all properly engaging. Now this little spot here is where the click goes, which is sitting right there, which we're going to put in right now. And again, it's kind of just sitting there. And so is that wheel, and so is that reverser, and so is the other wheel. So yeah, all it takes is one kind of awkward move and they're all kind of falling apart. And then of course we got to put this nice heavy duty spring in here, which yeah, good for us. All right, so let's try to get it in there, and hopefully it won't fly away. So let's hold it. Oh, yep. Oh, there it goes. That's what they do. They do love to fly. So try it again. Put it in place. All right. Yep. All right. I'm going to put it here, and then we're going to turn it around so I can hold it with my... I'm going to use the flat side of my tool, the brass tool here. Okay, so I'll hold it down while I pull it over. Sorry about the camera angle, a little bit off here. There we go. Try to get it to that click. Oh, it's got to go over that little arm of the click. Oh, come on. Almost there. Oh, there. Got to get it there. There. Okay. All right. There we go. Yeah, got it. Okay. Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't turn anything. Something's going to go flying. Just put the cover on. God. It's yeah. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's always this moment of like, okay, what's going to fly away now? All right. So we're going to put the plate. This is the automatic winding plate or bridge, excuse me. And put it on there. Of course, you have to get all the pivots of all those wheels into all the holes of the plate that are kind of loose and kind of moving around. And oh, there goes the reverser. We lost the reverser. We lost one. Okay. We're going to pull it back off and we're going to try it again. Yeah. That's what I was talking about when I mentioned that it was everything was a little loose here in this in the automatic section, a little troublesome to put in. So, but if anything, this hobby will teach you patience and persistence. And if you are not a patient person, one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to become a patient person, learn some patience, or you will not do well in this hobby because these little guys, they make you work for it. They are finicky sometimes. Okay, so trying to get the plate on, and I'm using my finger to kind of hold it all down as I try to get all the pivots in, making sure that all the pivots are in place. And looks like we've got them all in. Oh, there we go. I think like they just fell into place. All right. Looks like we're good. So I'll hold it in place while I get a screw in here. And unfortunately, these screws look exactly like these other screws. So I'm looking at the other screws and I'm trying to make sure that I'm putting the right screws here. So, okay, so I've got the right set of screws now. and I'm putting them, I'm going ahead and screwing them in here. So, but yeah, that's why you see there's this little pile of screws there, because I was looking at, I had basically 6 screws. 3 of them go here, 3 of them go on the other plate, and I was making sure which one was which. So now we're putting the date wheel on. Or excuse me, the date disc is what it's called. And now this is going to be the disc bridge. So this is the bridge that lays over the date disc and all of the parts that make the date changing happen, and holds everything down. It also contains the spring and a small little round piece that is what actually presses up against the disc to keep it on a date, and you'll see that in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and screw this down, and then we'll get the other parts in the spring. All right, so this little wheel right here, this little wheel goes into this little slot, and the spring pushes that into the date disc, and that's what kind of holds it in place and keeps the pressure on the disc so that it kind of snaps as it's changing dates. And this is different than any other one. This is different than what's on a Seiko. This is different than any of the Omegas I've worked on. This is very different. So let's have fun with the spring. Of course, these love to fly, so well, there it goes. And there it went. Okay, let's try that again. Springs are fun. Okay, what are we doing here? It just fell off again. There's the spring. Come on, get it together, man. Come on. All right, let's put it in here. All right. And there it went again. Went back into the left. Back into the left. All right, so hold it down. Take it easy. Get in the right angle. Get in the right direction. Let's put it in the groove here. Okay, and then we're going to use our brass stick here to hold it down and get it in place. Use a flat slide. Try to ensure to hold it in place. And ooh, it's going to pop up. Easy. Get it in there. Oh, okay. All right. There we go. Now it's in place. Okay. Don't breathe. Don't mess with it. It's going to fly. All right. There we go. It's a little bit of anxiety, but that's okay. That's all right. Okay. And then we're going to very, very, very carefully turn it to make sure that it does its job. And there you go. There. Just locks in the next date. So you can see that as our wheel turned, it turned the date disc and then it locked it in there. Okay. So now we are putting the oscillating weight back on the movement. And the reason I'm doing this is actually I need to make sure that everything is working properly in the automatic movement section. So I'm actually going to put a little bit of oil on all of those pivots. I did it on the other underside, but now I'm doing it to the top side through this bridge here. And now you will see the little piece that I manufactured to replace our friend Bolt that disappeared. So give it a little turn, make sure everything's working as it should. It's winding the... there it is. There's our friend. There's our tiny new friend that I made. Okay, so we're going to get it into position, and you can see that it's got a flat side, and that flat side actually turns up, and that's what locks into that piece above it. So, like I said, sorry I didn't get any footage of how I made it, but if you're interested in that stuff, please let me know below in the comments, and I will absolutely include that in the future. All right, so now we've got this dial. Now here's the deal with dials. You got to be really, really careful and gentle with dials. And really, it's all about very, very light touch. Water I'm using water here and these cleaning tips, and I'm just cleaning the hour markers here. You don't want to use any sort of harsh chemicals. And in some cases, I get to ask this a lot. Hey, can we get this dial cleaned? No, not really. You will do more damage to the dial, and it will actually look 10 times worse than when you started. So very light touch. I'm actually using this tool here to pick up dust, and that's it. And that's about all I'm going to do to the dial. I'm not going to mess with it. And I'm just cleaning up the date window, and then we got to put a new crystal on. So let's go to the crystal press. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I'm such a dork. So although the old crystal looked okay, it actually had a crack. And once I popped it out, I could actually see there was a crack there. So what this tool does and how it works is it actually, you put the crystal down on a stump, and then you push down, you screw down, and it actually compresses it. And then you take the rest of the watch case and you pull it up, and then you unscrew it to then release the tension on the screw, and the screw then the crystal expands into the watch case. And that's it. And now you have a new crystal in your case. Looking good. Now I'm just testing to make sure that it's the right size and it's not going to pop out. So now we got to deal with something. So these hands, I suspect that this is radium, and radium is what used to be used back in the 40s and 50s for loom. Wonderful little glow, but it also was incredibly radioactive. So I've got a Geiger counter here, and you can see I've got this little nuclear radiation safety guide that says, okay, well, if it's below 50, everything's fine. Nice and green. But if you get to anywhere, 1,000 or 2,000, extremely high, evacuate immediately, call the government. Okay. All right. That's fair enough. But I want to check these hands because I'm pretty sure that it's radium. And let's see how radioactive they actually are. Okay. So let's look at, whoa. Okay. Yeah. These would be radioactive. Okay, that was almost 4,000. That's almost double the called the government level. So okay. So I'm actually gonna get rid of it. I'm gonna get rid of the radium, and here's why. I'm a big fan of keeping things original as much as possible. However, radium just looks terrible. It looks absolutely terrible over time. It's not like tritium that gets that nice creamy color as it ages. This thing just turns brown. It looks like mold. It's not very nice. And oh, by the way, it's radioactive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of it. And then I'm going to replace it with loom that I'm going to tint to look aged. So it looks like it's aged loom, and it doesn't look like bright white, green, or blue. So, and you notice that I put it inside of water. And that's to make sure that it didn't get airborne. And that's the big danger when working on hands like this, is that you don't want the radium to get into the air because you don't want to breathe it in, because that's a problem. So that's why I put it into that container of water. And then I put them in the water, and then I actually did it all underwater. And I was wearing gloves and all that. And so everything was disposed of properly. So now you can see that I've mixed the loom to the right color and the consistency that I want. And this is actually the back side of the hands. So I'm putting the loom on the back side of the hands. And really, all you see through the hands is a very tiny strip of loom. So you don't really see this big amount that's on the back. But that's just the way they work. So how did we do? So this software and tool that I have here actually allows me to measure the performance of the watch in different positions and compare them to each other and be able to give me the differences between them. Because what we want to do is we want to make sure that the watch is performing well in different positions. And I'm actually testing to 4 different positions, which is pretty good, pretty average for this quality and caliber of watch. And what we're looking for is a low delta, basically the difference between the slowest and the fastest rate in any position, right? We want to keep that number low, and we want to look at amplitude and how well the amplitude is for the watch over the entire range. And then we look at beat error as well, right? So from an amplitude perspective, how close are we in this case to, 270, 280? Well, from the means, if you look at the means section down there in the bottom left, you'll see that the amplitude is 270 across all positions, 4 positions. The rate is an average of 7. It's gaining 7.54 seconds a day in all 4 positions. However, the delta across all 4 positions is 9.68, which is great. You want that to be below 30 seconds, and you only get it really, really tight with high-end chronometers. So for a 70-year-old movement of this grade, I think this is pretty damn good. Now, I did a lot of things to the watch. I did a lot of regulation. I did some dynamic poising, and I didn't show any of that because, again, that's hours of work that would have made this video hours long. But let me know in the comments below if you're interested in any of that stuff, and maybe I can put together some video of me doing it. I'm not an expert. There are other experts out there that are much better at it than I am, but I'm happy to share, how I do it and what I do. So now let's put the hands on. So this is actually the next day, and once they have dried, I'm putting the hands on, and I'm using my hand press here to get them gently into place and make sure that they're perfectly straight. And before I put the hour hand on, I actually turn the dial up until I see the date change, because then I know it's midnight, right? So I stop it right there at midnight, lock it in, and then I put the hour hand right at midnight. And then after that, I put the minute hand in, and I get them both in, and then we'll check it to see if I got it close. And my goal is always to get it within, 15 minutes in either direction of midnight, and the date changes at that point. So it's about to change. Bam. Wow. That's pretty much spot on at midnight. So not bad. Not bad at all. Okay. And we're good. So just get the stuff out of the way, and then let me get the seconds hand on here. Now the second hand, it's always very light touch on the second hand. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. It's just a little bit on there just to get it in place, and then it'll start kicking off. There you go. All right. And we've got ourselves a working restored watch. Sorry, just putting away the parts here to my press. Okay. So now we got to case this sucker up. We're going to put in the case, and we're going to put a strap on it, and call it a day. Now I polished the case a little bit, and nothing too fancy. I didn't want to go too overboard. I wanted to keep, the character. I just gave it a very light polish, so I didn't go too strong on it. In other cases, I actually will do a full restore where I will really go into it and really make adjustments to the case. But God, it looks great. I think that's looks pretty darn good if you ask me. It's working. Got a wonderful looking movement in there. This is just a great hobby, folks. I mean, if you're interested in this, I highly recommend it. It's a good time. So now I'm going to put the crown in here, make sure that everything's in place and everything's functioning properly, and then I'll tighten it down, and then I will put the spacer into the back of the watch. Now I'm tightening up the setting lever screw, which will hold the crown in place, make sure it doesn't pop out, and then test the functionality here. And then we can put the spacer ring in, which, by the way, was missing one of the screws, which is why it moved when I first tested it. When I first got it, you could see the moving inside the case. Well, that's it. So I was able to find a replacement screw in my supply, and I'm going to put it in right here, and then we will be good to go. So now that's screwed in, we can now put the back cover on. Looks pretty good. It's got a nice polish to it, but not too much. Some of the scratches are still there. It still shows its age and its history, but it's looking pretty good. It's a good-looking 70-year-old, if you ask me. So what I wanted to do here is I wanted to actually look for some straps, and these I felt really set off the color of the font and really make it pop. So I went ahead and put these on there. I think they look great. So this has been a heck of a lot of fun. I really hope you enjoyed yourself, and please like and subscribe if you did. Also, put your comments. You have any questions, concerns, you think I did something wrong or I should have done something differently, please put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you all, and keep an eye out because I'll be bringing more to you. Thanks. Take care.